Hello everyone, and welcome back to True Crime Mysteries. Today we have our July Crimes of the Month. In our Crimes of the Month video series, we cover updates from previous cases, notable crimes covered in the news, and crime-related events. As always, your friendly reminder to please give this video a like if you like the content, and subscribe if you haven't already because I make more content like this. Let's get into it. We have an update on the woman who pushed and killed Barbara Gustern in Manhattan back in March. Lauren has had a few court dates, and during those, we've learned a bit more information about what happened to cause this woman to shove an 87-year-old woman to the ground. In a brief recap, Barbara Gustern was a vocal coach grandmother that was leaving her home on March 10th. Barbara was hailing a cab to go and attend a show one of her students was performing in when a woman she didn't know started accosting her and violently shoved her to the ground. People around tried to help Barbara the best they could, but she'd suffered severe head trauma in the fall. She was rushed to the hospital but died 5 days later from several brain bleeds.
Hey, what did you do it?
Tonight, more details in the investigation that led the suspect in the street shove attack of an 87-year-old to turn herself in earlier this week. The Manhattan DA's office releasing a timeline of how they identified Lauren Pazienza, who is facing manslaughter and assault charges in the death of Barbara Gustern. But Pazienza's attorney continues to defend her character.
She's a law-abiding citizen who has got a college education, has got a job, she's engaged, she's got a beautiful family, she's never been in trouble in her life.
Prosecutors say an eyewitness to the assault who gave Gustern first aid helped identify the suspect seen in surveillance video. Notably, the DA claims to also have video of the suspect spending over 20 minutes in the area after the alleged attack, having a physical altercation with her fiancé near the scene, and even watching the ambulance arrive for Gustern. Prosecutors say surveillance video taken at Pazienza's apartment building that very night shows her wearing the same outfit as the suspect in the surveillance video moments after the attack. Her attorney remains doubtful.
When law enforcement pulled surveillance footage from the area, they saw the woman clearly and released the images to the media. Almost immediately, they were able to identify the woman as 26-year-old Lauren Pazienza. Pazienza had fled New York City that night and had been hiding at her parents' home on Long Island. They put out a warrant for her arrest, and with her lawyer, she did surrender herself. And where we left off, Pazienza was out on bail, but in May, her bail was revoked when the judge deemed her to be a flight risk, and she is now being held in prison while she awaits trial. Her lawyer, Arthur Adela, has represented clients such as Harvey Weinstein and Rudy Giuliani, and has argued that Pazienza didn't know Gustern was elderly, and that Pazienza was being targeted by the media due to her socioeconomic status. In the hearings, we also learned that Lauren is claiming that she was drunk the night of, having 10 glasses of wine that evening, and was angry when was asked to leave Chelsea Park. She said she was angry about being asked to leave and was arguing with her fiancé, and pushed Barbara Gustern because she was in the way. The prosecution described her behavior as a tantrum, and Barbara Gustern was killed as a result. In July, Pazienza was offered a plea deal of 15 years in prison with 5 years of post-release supervision in exchange for a guilty plea, which she has declined and opted to plead not guilty. She faces 25 years in prison for manslaughter. He also said, "We feel that pushing someone one time, not knowing their age or any disability, rises to the level to satisfy the elements of manslaughter in the first degree. We will keep pursuing justice the best we can." And then went on to discuss how hot it was going to be in Rikers prison during the upcoming heat wave. Pazienza's next court date is in September, and it looks like this case is going to trial, so let me know if you want me to cover that when it starts. Louis Edward Flood was discovered living in British Columbia, Canada after 20 years on the run for criminal sex offenses with minors. Flood had been featured on the television show America's Most Wanted in 2011 in hopes that the public would be able to help get him back in custody. It was in July of 2022 that a tip came in to the RCMP in Creston, BC, that reported flood in the area. The RCMP contacted the U.S. Marshal Service, Idaho State Corrections, and the Idaho State Police, and a coordinated effort was made to arrest Flood. He was arrested on July 21st and extradited back to the U.S. on July 25th, where he will serve the remainder of his 13-year sentence. No word yet on if he committed any further attacks while on the run, or how he remained undetected in Canada for so long. Back in April, 2 brothers from Lyons, Illinois, a township near Chicago, were arrested on charges related to the deaths of their mother and sister, who were discovered buried in the property in August of last year. The discovery was made when utility workers learned that there was a man living in a home that had services shut off. Officers conducted a welfare check on the homeowner, who was documented to be in her 70s, Jean Lelko. Michael Lelko, 45, and John Lelko, 41, were living in the residence without running water for over a year. Officers immediately noticed that the home had a significant hoarding problem. There were jars and containers of urine and feces, and several cats and dogs in poor condition. They had a shelter collect the animals and asked the men to leave the home. The home was determined to be inhabitable, and the men were interviewed by police as to their mother's whereabouts. Initially, John had told officers that their mother was out of town, but when they were interviewing Michael, he revealed that Jean had died in 2015. When officers asked how she had died, Michael said that their sister had pushed her down the stairs and their mother had deteriorated in the days following the fall. Officers asked where their sister was, and they said that she died of COVID in 2019 at 42 years old. Officers noted that there were no records of their deaths, and Michael turned out to be very forthcoming in his interview. A medical examiner was not able to determine the cause of death due to the severe degradation of the bodies, nor could they confirm how long they had been deceased. The mother's skull showed evidence of a fracture consistent with a fall, but they could not determine if that had been what killed her. There was also speculation about Jennifer contracting COVID in 2019, as the first confirmed death due to COVID was in February of 2020. Michael in his interviews told officers that Jean and Jennifer had been difficult to take care of. Michael stated that his sister suffered from several mental health issues, which could have potentially been motivation if they'd been murdered. Both brothers were taken to the hospital to be evaluated physically and mentally, and were released a couple hours later when it was determined there was no cause for concern. They were then housed by a private organization while the investigation was ongoing. Officers speculated that the Lelko brothers didn't report their mother's death because they would lose their only source of income, which was their mother's Social Security checks, which totaled $1,000 per month. Neither Michael nor John had ever worked. They were both unmarried without children, and neighbors had never even seen John until he was leave the home, and he hadn't left for years, whereas Michael was often seen around the neighborhood. So far, only Michael has been charged with concealment of death, though it is expected that John will be charged as well. It is also expected that federal charges of theft will be filed for both of them for illegally cashing their deceased mother's Social Security checks for 6 years. Both are being held in custody while they await further court dates, and the judges ordered Michael to be given psychiatric assistance before his next court date, which is in May. Krista Abelseth was 16 years old when she was sexually assaulted by the then 30-year-old John Barnes. Krista said she'd been drinking with Barnes and had suddenly become very tired and intoxicated. The last thing she remembered was being offered a ride home. However, Krista awoke naked on the bathroom floor in Barnes's home. She hadn't been conscious during the sexual assault and had become pregnant as a result. She didn't initially report the assault as she didn't know the laws around filing police reports, bearing in mind she was also only 16. However, when she was seeking therapy in 2015, she was informed that she still was within the window to report the crime, which she did. Krista didn't inform her attacker that she had kept the child and raised her child as a single parent for 5 years before Barnes learned of the child and immediately sought custody of the little girl. Then Krista recently lost custody when she gave her daughter a cell phone, which had been prohibited by the judge.
This just sounds like a grave miscarriage of justice. And then, I mean, that's just the first part of all of this, right? That's the rape from 16 years ago when you were 16. But now you have a 16-year-old daughter and you've lost complete custody, and you're paying the man child support. Do you have any idea why he came back into your life? He found out about her 6 years into her life, and then 4 years later decided to go for custody. Why did he do that? Did he ever say why?
It just was never enough for him. He just wanted more and more and more. He basically just wants her to himself.
During any of the custody hearings, were you able to assert in court to this judge, Jeffrey Cash, this man raped me when I was 16, and now he's taking my child, and you're ordering me to pay him?
Yes, it has been brought up in court more than one time. So the judge is aware of our ages and what took place.
But did the judge ever say anything? This is the picture of Judge Jeffrey Cash on the screen right now. Did he respond to you? Did he give you an answer? Did he say anything on the record in court?
No, he did not acknowledge it at all.
The daughter, now 16, brought forward allegations that her father had sexually, physically, and emotionally abused her. Krista was back in court to request full custody, which was also the teen's wish. Initially, the request was denied due to insufficient evidence, despite evidence from the hospital confirming that the 16-year-old had injuries consistent with sexual assault. Barnes also stopped allowing Krista to visit or communicate with her child. This is when Krista took to the media, alleging that the courts were protecting a known child predator and was a danger to her child. The story garnered international attention, demanding criminal action. On July 15th, the judge on the case ordered that the teen be placed in the care of a third party while he looked into the sexual assault allegations from both Krista and her daughter. The age of consent in Louisiana is 17, and due to Krista's age when she gave birth, no matter what the circumstances had been, it was illegal and should have been investigated during the initial custody trial. Also, Barnes was held in contempt of the courts during that hearing and ordered to pay Krista's legal fees for not allowing her to communicate with her daughter. So far, there have been no updates from the courts, even though there was supposed to be a verdict on July 15th regarding the custody arrangement, but the courts couldn't come to a decision, so it's being pushed to a later date. We don't know when the next court dates are, but it is hopeful that Krista is reunited with her daughter. In California, the Gem and Jewelry Show was getting ready to move the event to the Pasadena Convention Center in San Mateo. It is a traveling convention that features rare private collections for display. And during the move on July 11th, all of the precious wares were loaded onto an armored vehicle driven by Brink Security. The contents of the vehicle have an estimated combined value of over $100 million. The vehicle had 2 drivers who had stepped away from the vehicle at a rest stop and left the truck unattended for 27 minutes. When they came back, the vehicle had been robbed. The thieves are alleged to have bypassed the vehicle's locking system. Specifics haven't been released, so as to not jeopardize the safety of other vehicles in the fleet. Initially, it was reported that the loss was less than $10 million in value, but it is now being discovered that several of the collectors had underinsured their jewels because insuring these items is incredibly expensive. The owners impacted aren't huge corporations. They are usually individuals or families that rent out the items to trade shows to not only share the items with the public, but it also helps to cover the costs of insuring them. The Gem and Jewelry Show has been operating for years and has never had an issue before. They have also exclusively worked with Brinks to secure the items and have never had any issues. This is an ongoing investigation, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about this later.